took over a lot of run of the whiskey world, but the single malt and Scotch, especially in the U.S., it's just we're getting the new wave of drinker into that right now.
I met with the rep at 716 Emporium.
Yeah.
And he was representing Balvenie.
Okay.
And I have his card. I can't remember his name, but he was talking to me about how he met with the stores and his bosses and said, I have a spreadsheet that breaks it down. Like, this market is not going to buy Caribbean Cask 14 at $110 plus.
Yeah.
They're not. And he goes, I will take a hit if it means that we can keep it at 90-ish.
Yeah.
Because then I can make up for it in volume. And they gave him a go-ahead, and he literally took a hit, and he showed it. Like, he showed the emails, and I'm like, dude, that's crazy. He's like, it's just, you just got to play the game. And he said the same thing. It's tariffs, it's market, it's, you can only do so much, and at the same time, cost is cost. Yeah. So, you know, and cost is only increasing as the world increases. So it's, you know, it costs money to run Lagavulin. No one's afraid of that. But when I seen it drop to whatever it is now, like 80-ish, I'm like, is that okay? But like, is Lagavulin okay with that?
But that's
because
kind of
it's
ideal.
Such a good juice.
Yeah. I know. It's kind of ideal to have it be that way because we want the yous of the world that actually are already big Lagavulin fans to continue to purchase and to not, you know, debate, well, where am I moving? You know, I already know I love this juice. It's already fantastic whiskey. So if we can keep you and then continue to tell the stories and get the new consumer in, that's going to make a big difference.
So, yeah, we're still not recording, but that's fine.
Okay. We can record now.
We can get going. I'm ready.
Let's go. Yeah.
So really is that the mindset of not just the distillery but also the distributors of why don't we try to keep things where we want them to be from a price standpoint, specifically with that lens? We want existing lovers of whatever SKU to bring new generation of drinkers into that same SKU. So you're passing along the love of Lagavulin 16, for example.
I think it's partially my read on it. I would say that we're looking at the market realities when it comes down to where, you know, what's going to be successful on the shelf right now. And with the ability to take Lagavulin at a place where it's going to be under $100, you know, that is, again, taking the respect to the juice, that it's one of the, you know, world-class single malts out there. And continuing to put that out there, but also making it easier for more of an entry for someone who wants to go and try that single malt.
Yeah.
So is it necessarily entirely like, yes, I want to keep you guys drinking it because you love it, you're like me. I mean, that's my desert island whiskey. If you're going to leave me somewhere, leave me with a case of that and don't help. I'll say I'm fine. That's what I'm going to write in the sand. I'm
Until
good.
anymore.
Yeah, and then I'll call you again. But just leave me there. I'm good. I've got good whiskey. But, yeah, I mean, when you got a brand like Lagavulin 16, you know, it has had a great following forever. I mean, classic malts of Scotland from the 1980s all the way up to today. It's really one of those, you know, flag plant single malts. But we're also facing the reality of the new drinker. And that consumer, it's a question of if they're only going to drink, my hope is that those consumers are going to drink better. And if we can get them into a bottle like Lagavulin, we're trying to make those lifelong lovers of the whiskey.
The interesting thing about Lagavulin 16 is, did that exponentially grow because of Parks and Rec? Because I think that a lot of people, I do not like celebrity products. I normally don't. And honestly, the Nick Offerman Lagavulin we can talk about if we get to that, but that's not my favorite Lagavulin SKU. But him always having Lagavulin 16 in the show, I think sparked a lot of people to at least try it.
So long before my time, obviously, heck, I was in high school at that point. So do I know if that's what sparked a big increase in Lagavulin 16? I don't. But I would assume it didn't hurt, which also would naturally lead us to having one of my favorite whiskey ambassadors in the world, Nick Offerman, because he's one of the most authentic. I mean, who can sit in front of a fire for an hour drinking a bottle of whiskey and everyone's happy to sit there and watch?
Yeah.
So,
on a loop.
Exactly. I'm happy to sit there. So I think when you have somebody like that and you have a moment in time, especially culturally like that, of course it's going to impact the whiskey.
Yeah.
But is it still impacting it today? That's the goal.
Because that's the whole thing when he did introduce that to the show. I'm pretty sure he didn't even reach out to Lagavulin. He just put it in, and he's like, this is just what I like to drink. And then that's when the relationship with Lagavulin actually formed, because he was basically giving them free publicity because that's his favorite Scotch. And that's the best person to have as an ambassador, because they're not doing it for the money. They're doing it because they actually love the juice.
Well, and he is, in a lot of ways, from what I've listened to him, he's very much like Ron Swanson. He's not going to promote something he doesn't care about.
Yeah.
So he naturally cares about the brand, And he honestly wants to do something like that. So, and he does have a small hand. I had a question back at an old distributor meeting of, in the Offerman editions, does he have a hand in the decisions? I'm like, well, the reality is obviously the distillers and the team at Lagavulin, they're going to make the final calls. But they do kind of walk him through what their ideas are. And he, in a way, gets to say, like, yeah, I mean, I really like this idea. I don't know if he actually said no, if it would change the plan, because they are going to read the market. I say, we're talking about a rum cask Crown Royal. That's going to be the next thing we'll talk about. But likewise, they did a rum cask finish on the 11-year for Lagavulin, which will be similar for something we'll try here in a little bit. And that's natural. You're taking smoke against sweet.
Yeah.
And these things make a lot of sense. So, and that's really also just kind of reading some of the next steps, I think, in the market, where rum's always been the question is this the next major emerging category after tequila and after whiskey? And I think it's just that question, people starting to see that kind of playing more into our finishes. And like you said, I think Balvenie, that's another one that's done that. And, we kind of see this more and more in the world of Scotch and single malt.
That's interesting. Chicken or the egg? Is it because whiskey's finished in rum cask, or is it because rum is actually getting more prevalent? But before we go in, because I would definitely go into the Crown Royal, you want to introduce yourself, tell everybody who you are, who you work for, titles, and all that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Alex Hunnell. I am a brand development manager for the Diageo portfolio with Southern Glazers here in Buffalo. So basically my role is to, be an ambassador for the brands here in Buffalo, be able to tell the stories, not only to the consumer, but also work with the staffs, help train them up, make them really confident, and also just kind of help make the best plans to make sure that our bottles are getting from the shelves into the right consumer's hands.
I love it. Thanks for being on, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, you've been a friend of the show for years. We've worked with you a bunch, so this isn't the first time you've been on, but in different ways, but pumped that you're back. Excited to talk about the lineup.
Yeah.
Quick shout out. Thank you, Addie's, for hosting us. Appreciate us using your tasting room. Thank you so much. It's very appreciated. For the juice. So let's just give an overview, and then we'll start with Crown.
Yep, absolutely. So we're going to walk through the Crown Royal. These are some of the new innovations that have come out of Diageo, and some of them we're going to kind of look side by side against those flagship SKUs. So we have the Crown Royal Marquis. That's a rum-finished Canadian blended, which we'll talk about here in a second. We're going to look at Johnnie Walker's new Black Cask, which is the new extension of the Johnnie Black family. We also got the new Bulleit Mesquite Smoked Malt, which is pretty unique, which I'm glad you guys are going to try that one. And then we're going to do the Sweet Peat 11-year Lagavulin against the Lagavulin 16-year. Yeah, really, really fun kind of extensions to the portfolio. One thing great about the Diageo brands is not only do we have those, really flag plant brands, they continue to come out with really interesting and unique innovations, and a lot of them really do play into the market timeliness, especially like we're talking about the new Marquis. So this is unique for Crown Royal because, if I ask you guys, what does everybody know from Crown? What's the first thing people think of?
Crown Apple.
Beautiful. Flavors, apple, now blackberry, chocolate, peach, we're going to keep going, vanilla, salty caramel. There's lots of incredible flavors. It's favorite choices for a Bills game at Crown Apple, shot with a beer. Awesome. These are all great things. I also like to remind people there's a huge other segment of the Crown brand, which is these really well blended whiskeys, because that is the heritage of Crown. Crown started off as a blended whiskey. They took hundreds of trials of whiskey to make something that was fit for the royal family. That's where we really kind of started off this brand. So what you're trying today is the Crown Royal Marquis. That is going to be one of these great blends. These are a mix of generally like corn whiskeys blended with flavoring whiskeys that tend to have mash bills similar to bourbon, not bourbon because they're made in Canada, and also rye. So those are going to give you a lot of kind of the power and the spice that's behind Crown, but we should definitely cheers, Jen, and get a sip going. But it has that natural Crown smooth character. But what I will say about this, I don't think I've ever tried a Crown that is actually smoother from start to finish.
Yeah.
It's super light.
Incredible. And it's not that spice character that you normally pick up from even regular Crown Deluxe. Yeah. The rum is coming through with, especially now I'm sitting on the back of my palate now, I'm picking up a lot more of like kind of that honey brown sugar that's really picking up. This is definitely, if you're looking for something that's big and punchy, this is the wrong whiskey for you.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, what do you guys think before we go any deeper?
Yeah, I think I tend to notice a lot with rum finished whiskeys that there's a very big syrupy note on the back of my tongue from that like molasses, that brown sugar, all that on the back of my tongue.
Yes.
I am getting that with this, but it's not overpowering. A lot of whiskeys that finish in rum cask I feel like are overpowering.
Correct.
This one I think does a good job of balancing all the other flavors with that viscosity to make it not feel as thick.
Yep, and that's the Canadian whiskey.
Yeah.
Honestly, because Canadian whiskeys are more balanced, Scotch, depending if it's a single malt, it's going to have a little more weight just because it is 100% malt, and with that, less column distillation. Whereas a lot of Canadian whiskey, it's really column forward, so it's going to be lighter. It's meant to be very, very palatable across all people. This is one of those things where I'm like, I've been welcoming people into this whiskey specifically thinking, hey, summer's coming up. Like, that's a porch drinker for me.
Oh, yeah.
It's easy, splash of water. I wouldn't put it on a big ice cube personally, but some people who are more flavored Crown people have been talking about putting this on ice.
What's its proof?
So this one, off the top of my head, and of course now I have to grab the bottle because I don't want to say it is 80. Okay, most of your Crowns, except for like the Crown Black, are mostly 80 proof. Crown Black goes up to 90. But this is exciting for me because it extends a lot of those really unique whiskeys with the Crown Black, the Deluxe, the 12-year, and even getting into like the 18-year, where you get to see the power of the blending from Crown.
Yeah, no doubt.
Is the base of this a existing Crown product?
To my understanding, they say it's a fine blend of Canadian whiskey, so I would guess it's a version of the Deluxe blend.
Sure.
It may have been tweaked slightly to match the profile that comes from the rum, but I know it's aged similarly and then finished in rum cask.
What's the projected year of aging?
They didn't give a year. So just
Okay.
like I would tell you, like when we get to Black Cask, I can tell you it's at least 3 years old because that's our laws in Canada.
Sure.
So it's got to be at least 3 years old. And then I always tell people, like, look, and you guys, I think you did an aging class recently where I'm not, and I'm coming from Black Button and craft, age is never my first focus. Profile is. I think for what this is looking to achieve, it achieves it really well.
I agree.
Yeah.
And which is a really good point because
Yep.
a lot of bourbon people are hell-bent on age. And I'm like, let's just relax. Let's remember the other 95% of what makes a whiskey a whiskey.
Yes.
So that's a great option to start with.
Yeah.
It really is. And yes, when it's 90 out and
Yeah.
you still want whiskey, then this is a really good move.
I know. And it's just, that's what I'd like about the Crown because we've got a little bit of something for everybody now.
Yeah.
Now, did you guys want to jump over to the Johnnie Black Cask?
Oh,
In
yeah.
The black?
Really quickly,
Yeah,
though,
bring it
because
on.
the label branding is interesting. It's something
Yeah.
we always talk about on the show. It's black bottle, purple label.
Yes.
That the bags are purple. Do they still send it in the bag?
They still do the bags,
Okay.
for now at least.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
as far as we know, I love this bottle. I've kind of been saying
Yeah,
it's pretty
it's
sexy
gorgeous.
packaging for this product. And what's been kind of unique is that we've come out with a couple different, more like purple styles now with blackberry. And with this, I like that they separated it because you would have gotten a lot of confusion, I think, from the consumer
100%.
if it was just the standard bottle with a purple style label. So this is supposed to have a little more iconography. It's supposed to really stand out like on a back bar.
Sure.
I think is a real other big goal for this. And we talk about cocktails. A lot of it is more tropical themed. You know, one of the big ones called a Marquis Moment. That's a pineapple based cocktail. And if you start thinking about the richness there, that's going to balance out some of the tropical and the brightness that you're picking up from that pineapple.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the price on this?
So, right around 40, 45,
Okay.
depending on where you're at. But it's very approachable.
Love that.
Touch above the flavors, right in the same kind of range as any of the Deluxe and beyond.
That's so cool. Crown is one of those brands that gets put into this vein of like not an experienced whiskey drinker's whiskey.
Yeah.
And that couldn't be further from the truth. I think Crown is my father-in-law, huge Crown drinker, but base Crown drinker. He
Sure.
was at least before I met his daughter, and I started getting him into Black Button. Was the first one that I actually
Yep.
got him into. But like the base Crown, sure, you can have your reservations on that. But like there's a lot of good, well-matured Crown products and well-finished Crown products that are actually pretty experienced drinkers.
Yeah. And I would say I completely understand when anybody has like Crown Deluxe. Oh, it's Deluxe.
Yeah.
As I also say, well, I would challenge you to try it again because I would doubt that you've tried it not in the wrong setting to actually try to appreciate it, which is nothing against drinking it at a Bill's bar on any Sunday. That's fine. That's what we do here in Western New York. But if you sit back and you kind of think about it, and if we were doing a full thing, we could talk about, it's 5 different parts, it's multiple blends, it's really well crafted to be, again, just easy and palatable. It's not supposed to be hard whiskey. You want hard whiskey, I promise you, we've all had it, and we can all find it. But most consumers aren't looking for that.
Now they blend, they don't distill there.
They do both.
They
so
do
they
both,
do all the
okay.
distillation, then they do the blending from those.
Got it.
There's actually more barrels. I think last time I checked, it's about 1.7 million barrels, which is more than the entire population of Manitoba.
Wow. Who's the distiller there, or the distiller and blender? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my
Top of my
head.
head.
It's generally a longer team. Like
Sure.
Andrew McKay is one of the gentlemen. He used to work with the Crown Blending. I met him when we went down to Bulleit back in October. And he handles a lot of the whiskey in North America and one of the leaders of the palate team for Diageo. Brilliant. Also, he's one of those guys, he walks in a pair of jeans and like a work shirt, and he's smarter than everyone in the room.
Love that.
Genius. And they just an incredible palate. One other head people right now, her name's Nicole Austin. She's out of Syracuse, New York originally. Born and raised. She worked for Kings County for a while, did Tullamore. Then she was actually the general manager of George Dickel for a few years. And I forget her official title, but she's one of the high-ups now with all North American whiskey and innovation.
Sweet.
So, New Yorker running a lot of Diageo.
Yeah.
Good for
That's
her.
so cool.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
really cool.
Yeah. So Johnnie Walker then is the natural progression from there, trying to go like from least palate offensive to most palate offensive with the Lagavulin.
Well, hold on. Let's watch the North. No, I know what you mean, though. I'm going to go ahead and get a little space here. If you guys want to go side by side, we can do definitely the black cask and the black together.
Sure.
So I wouldn't be too worried about putting the black on top of your rocks glass at this point. It will probably knock out most of the characters. I'm just gonna do that.
So, full transparency,
Yep.
the yellow label black cask, I have to specify because black label is black label.
Yes.
So, just to stay on the same page,
Yes.
the yellow label black cask is really good.
Yes.
I've already crushed a bottle.
Love it.
Over time.
I was going to say full transparency.
Yeah,
That's a
not-
good transparency, so I appreciate that.
Not immediate, but I love the price point on it. It's not egregious.
No.
They're not beating you over the head. And it's new.
Yes.
So you almost kind of anticipate it being a little bit more abrasive to the wallet, but it's not. And I love that.
I agree. And I like nothing on the table outside of, I think Lagavulin right now is usually around like $89.99, give or take, for the top end. That's the most expensive product on the table today. Everything else is, really 70 to south.
Sure.
For anything else we're going to talk about. This is a really nice extension. So have you guys ever had the double black before from Johnnie?
Yes.
So I know, Mike, you like peat. Derek, you're pretty
I'm
big
a
on
big
peat.
peat
No,
guy.
he loves peat
you're
more
big-
than I do.
I'm the
That's
big peat
right.
guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So do you like the double black?
I
Or
don't
is
hate
it
it.
too heavy for you?
No, it was not too heavy.
Okay.
But he's also destroyed me because he's like, listen, you need Wee Beastie to start. And I'm like, why are we doing this in your basement? And I just became a part of his landscaping bed.
Correct.
So I like that we added this other side of extending the Johnnie Black family. So, I mean, the short history on Johnnie, for those who don't know, starts in the 1820s. Gentleman named John Walker. He literally sells his family farm after his father passes and opens a grocery store, and then starts actually blending tea and whiskey. So he basically just bring in local single malts. This is right after we passed an excise tax in Scotland that truly made Scotch more able to come out from being illicit. So does all that. He mostly stays in the grocery business till his son Alexander takes over, and that's where we really see it go from being kind of a small town brand to within the empire, I would say. So India, Africa, the U.S., Canada, where he puts it on ships, change the bottle shape so they don't break as much when they're going through transit, adds the slanted label, really iconic style. He's going from Walker's Kilmarnock whiskey to Old Highland, which is close to Black Label. And then as we come to today, truly the master blender, her name is Dr. Emma Walker. She's not a part of the Walker family, just happens to have the same last name.
Coincidence. That's sick.
She started in 2022, and she's brilliant. So this is one of the new projects she's brought out. So whichever glass you have, I would say start with the black cask and then kind of go back and forth between the 12 and the black cask, and you can really see the differences. But one major difference here where the black, the 12-year, can be upwards of 40 different whiskeys blended, literally from about the 29 distilleries that Diageo works with. We can pick whiskey all across the portfolio. One of the big players is Kalila. So Kalila is an Islay whiskey. That's our largest Islay producer. Brings all that smoke and that peat. I like to say it's kind of a little more like a medicinal style of peat necessarily than more like maritime. And then the difference here is that we're using all barrels that were bourbon. So everything goes in here was 100% bourbon cask. 70% actually were from Bulleit Distillery, which is pretty cool to see.
Oh, cool.
And it's a lot more the lighter whiskeys. So where this is going across the portfolio, this is using things like Cameron Bridge. Do you guys know Cameron Bridge? Mm-hmm. So grain whiskey, probably more like wheat and corn. Then also going to be using Glenelgan and also Rose Isle. These are both Speyside styles. So a little bit more like that orchard fruit, that's sherry kind of finishing. So that's going to be, unlike this where we normally have more of that sherry, these are all bourbon. So you have that different kind of characteristic. It's light, it's kind of marshmallowy. It's got like this really nice sweet, but it's got almost no smoke. So for someone who doesn't love the smoke characteristic that comes out of the Johnnie, this changes that for them. So what you've had it already. So Derek, is this your first time trying it?
Yeah, it's the first time.
So what do you think?
I like it. I smelled the Johnnie Black, and I'm like, I'm in love because I love Johnnie Black Label.
Yep.
And then I smelled this, and I didn't get that same punchiness because I didn't know the background of it. I have no idea what Black Cask was before you started talking.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah, so I didn't know what it was at all. So I was like, oh, I don't know about this because I just love Johnnie Black Label. I love Pete. Everybody already knows that. But once I had it, I think that the taste is where this really shines. Yeah. Because this is very sweet, very not Speyside-esque because it's not overly orchard. Yeah. But it is very, very well rounded. This is delicious on the taste.
The bourbon influence is strong.
Yes. And
very strong.
And me reading into some of the strategies with Diageo, just kind of seeing between this and Sweet Peat, is also probably reading the realities of some of the market, where I think that we are looking at people who might want more easy entry on the palate side. And this is definitely more, hey, we can go to the bourbon drinker. We can get somebody who's looking for something a little lighter, a little sweeter. And, peat is difficult for many people. I mean, I was weird. At 21, first time I ever tried Lagavulin with my buddies at a bar in New York City. We didn't realize how expensive that was going to be, but we survived. And I ended up drinking 3 glasses because the other 2 couldn't stand it. I'm not complaining. It was a great night.
Yeah.
But that's the peat thing, where it's so divisive. And I think that Johnny coming out with something that's going to bring in people that maybe haven't tried Johnnie Walker before or in a while, or maybe were standoffish towards the brand because they expected it's this, or it's what my dad drank, my grandfather, my uncle, whoever, and a lot of that same kind of generational, we don't drink what the people drank before us.
Yeah,
that's the difference now. Well, there is something for you. It's different. It's built more for today. It's built more for the palate of today. Not like these have lost any of the classic character. Because trust me, no one's ever going to be angry if you give them Johnny Blue. It's a phenomenal whiskey.
Right. The interesting part of it, because again, I purposely didn't do the research on it because I didn't know what it was and I wanted to experience it. The Black Cask and the Black Label, especially side by side, I was expecting them to be like a iteration of each other, but they're not, which is fascinating. Is there a reason why they went Black Cask instead of like Yellow Label or something like that?
They didn't give us the exact reasoning.
Okay.
My only read on it is that because you char the inside of a bourbon barrel. And because it is bourbon barrel forward, that was my guess why the marketing team went that way. Double Black is basically, in a way, double the peat. It's heavier smoke. It's also using a rechar barrels as well. So that's adding extra cask character into the whiskey. So you're getting more West Coast, more Talisker, more Cardew, more Cardew being Speyside, and then more of that Kalila that's building up the character of Double Black, where, again, you're kind of avoiding the West Coast of Scotland here. You're not picking up that smoke. So it's a lot more – it's a good gap between red and the rest of the portfolio as well. Red, very nice, great grain character, kind of like cinnamon and spicy. This kind of steps up. It's like it's still got all the great things we love about black, but just much more palatable and sweeter.
I just think people need to really understand and appreciate the artisan behind blending.
Yes.
Because it's not easy. And when you're like, we've taught blending classes to different companies, and we're looking at it on such a granular scale. When you have an entire brand based on blending and you have an idea and you're like, okay, I'm trying to get this taste. I need 40 different scotches to make that happen. And then you finally make it work. The art of that is just mind blowing to me. I have such an appreciation for it because there's so much back end to get exact. Okay, I need this, and I know these people use this kind of wood. I need that, and then you're taking all that into account. Whole different league.
And what people never think about, and not necessarily even Diageo talks to me about this, but you have to start thinking, well, what if they change grain supplier that year?
Yep.
Now we have a new grain supplier. What if they got their wood from somewhere else? Or what if the barrels that were made had wood from different forests? What if the climate was different at that time? What if it was a hotter or colder day, warehousing? There's so many factors that go into anything that these teams are trying, and they have the advantage of laws of average in a way because you are using enough barrels for these larger blends. Yeah. But still, I mean, Emma Walker's brilliant. Yeah. One of the cool things she talks about is the idea of like she looks at Scotland almost like a heat map because she's looking for heat maps for profile. And she's able to start picking and choosing from her knowledge. I think she spent 13 years working in all these distilleries, or a number of them, working on the team that was creating the flavor profiles and the palate team and actually going through and keeping this consistency.
We would love to talk to her. That's crazy.
I would love to talk to her outside of a large group as well. It'd be awesome. Now, we actually did I do this thing called the Academy of Beverage Leadership, which is a lot of where my education and training for the role comes from. And one thing, they had a producer chat basically, and I got to send a message to her, and even while she's talking to everyone, she sent me like a book back.
Sweet.
She's very thorough, very like upfront, normal, like honest person. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to sit down and have a dram with her and actually talk.
Yeah, be like, hey, I'm from Buffalo. I need just a little bit of hometown love.
Yeah, if you want to come over here anytime.
So when did Diageo acquire Johnnie Walker? Do you know?
So Johnnie Walker. Well, it's a longer story because Diageo didn't exist until 1997.
Okay.
It was a collaboration it was a merger between a company called Metropolitan and the Guinness company, basically. So they go all the way back. I mean, this is the fun of teaching these Scotch classes. So Johnnie Walker was its own company. It was actually acquiring distilleries. Like Cardew was one of the first single malts it acquired. I believe it acquired Talisker in 1916. I don't remember if it acquired Lagavulin or if it went over to a company called Distillers Company Limited. Yeah. They were a couple of grain distillers that decided they'd be more or stronger if they worked together than if they worked separately, like or late 1800s. And then as all the single malts just started struggling, they started cherry picking and buying up all these single malts and acquiring them as families either couldn't keep going or they passed on. And slowly but surely, they owned like half of Scotland. And then come the 70s, 80s, when whiskey kind of took a downturn, the Guinness Company acquired all of these brands and then eventually merged with Metropolitan, which is Diageo. So I think Johnnie Walker ended up being with the Distillers Company Limited in like the late 20s, which is when a lot of these brands came over.
Yeah, because I've always associated Johnnie Walker with the 4 main distilleries. It was Kalila, Cardew, Clynelish, and Glenkinchie. Yeah. So learning more about Johnnie Walker and like some of these being 39 different distilleries, that had to be a pretty big shift for the brand to say, we're going away from these flavor profiles we're so familiar with, and now we're going all over Scotland because we feel like we can enhance the brand or create more SKUs for it. That part is very fascinating on how expansive Johnnie Walker has become.
Yeah. And not knowing exactly when they started working with all the distilleries throughout that history, but I mean, definitely like Johnnie Black, I don't know if it's entirely stayed the exact same, but to what I've read, there is a lot of consistency with the ideas behind Black all the way back to, I think in 1906 is the first time Black Label existed. And I think it still had a 12-year age statement at that time from my research. But, even you come to today, you've now got, you're right, Gold Reserve, 18, which was platinum for a while, which has come back to a gold style label. 15, the green, that's one of my personal favorites. You would probably love it if you haven't had it because it is a lot more of our like island style whiskeys, our West Coast. So it's a little bit more smoke, and it's also the only blend that is an entirely single malt blend.
Nice.
So that's a little more unique in its style versus everything else, which is going to utilize grain in some place.
Sure.
Green Label 15.
Green Label 15.
So what is the escalation of Johnnie Walker? Like the entry brand is, or entry bottle is what, and the ending bottle is what? Can you walk our audience through kind of that whole progression?
Yep. So the basic line would go from red, and now it would, I think, in my opinion, go black cask to black to double black. And then you would walk into green and gold reserve are kind of interchangeable around the same price point, but I would probably go gold reserve to green just because it has a 15-year age statement. Then you go to 18. Then you technically go to blue.
Got it.
Now from there, there's Ghost, there's more rare, there's more limited releases. There's a 52-year, there's a Vault. There's a ton of different like really limited special releases, things that like New York State only sees like a few bottles of. But the main progression is blue down to red.
Is there a reason, like we did a class the other day about green spot and yellow spot and how they used to mark the barrels and that's how they signify. Is there any reason behind the color of these whiskeys, or is it just because that's just what they decided?
I don't know. And any times I've talked about it, I've never seen a specific reason they went with certain colors. So I don't want to speak out of turn on that one.
Yeah, that's fair.
All good.
It's so interesting because you see a lineup like that. There has to have been some reason.
For sure.
It might be a little kept secret, which is also cool.
Or honestly, I might have just missed that page.
Oh, that's fair.
It's very possible. With the amount of brands and materials they teach us, sometimes I'm like, I do my best to know everything.
100%.
That's a perfect segue for Bulleit because when you look at the Diageo portfolio, it's littered with Scotch. And then you're like, oh, what whiskey, like what bourbon do they have?
No,
and
fair.
it's like, oh, Bulleit.
Well, it's the U.S. So when you ask what whiskey, you're talking bourbon, usually first and foremost.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And
I'm like, well, what happened? And you're like, well, Scotch. Okay, got it. Yeah, that tracks. But Diageo's massive. And then when you realize the barrel count.
Yes.
So while talking about the difference in Diageo's portfolio between Scotch and bourbon, there's fill in the blanks. X amount of casks in Scotland right now.
I think there's 10 million total casks, at least last time I looked at the Scotch Whisky Association, and basically we have half.
Yeah, so and then Diageo is 5 out of the 10, which is bananas to me. So when you have such a staggering amount of a portfolio as an industry, or as an organization covering an industry, and then it's Bulleit. Why Bulleit?
So Bulleit comes over because of the acquisition of the Seagram's brands. So when Seagram's decided, at one point they divested pretty much every brand in their portfolio, and they went into the movie business briefly before I think they folded entirely. So Universal Studios, they got all that. So Bulleit had just become a part of the Seagram's family as of like 98, 99. And then when it got acquired, it moved over to Diageo when they acquired the Seagram's brand and many other brands within that line. So that's how Bulleit became a part of it. It was between them and Moet Hennessy that actually acquired a bunch of the brands. There was them or Remy, off the top of my head, one of the two, that acquired all of these brands out of the Seagram's portfolio. So then Bulleit kind of had to be this scrappy brand that they're like, well, we're welcoming you in, but you still have to go build your brand. And Bulleit spent a lot of time in bars. Honestly, like there's the Bulleit Revolver is a cocktail in San Francisco. because there were a couple of the team went out there a lot and they spent a lot of time in the bars there. And one of the owners ended up buying the whiskey and didn't really know what it was. And the bartender was trying to make this kind of like a new, almost like 3-touch ingredient using something like a coffee liqueur in replace of sweet vermouth in a Manhattan. And he's like, well, I've got this whiskey I need to sell, kind of like if you know the Moscow Mule story. And I've got this idea, so I'm going to make this thing called the Revolver, which sounds like Bulleit. And also at the end, you actually light the orange on fire, and it has the idea of like the smoke off of a fire and gun. So Bulleit has this long history of like doing burger and cocktail competitions and spending a lot of time building themselves in the bars because it had a higher rye content. Bartenders really liked working with it. And that really kind of solidified and built Bulleit before the craft world took off. So it's one of those early craftier style bourbon brands that really kind of set the motion in place. And then they bring rye out in 2011 because bartenders, we love the bourbon, but we want a rye. And now we're looking backwards in cocktail books and we're starting to see all this cocktail history. So Bulleit's starting to create more innovation. They're coming out with the rye. They're bringing a high 95% rye to the market. And then they come out with their 10-year expressions. And then now we're starting to see where the mesquite kind of falls in is these, year in, year out limited releases that are coming in. They're great for, they're not a ton of bottles. Great for the stores. They're getting a nice pop. Then, we're also restocking to bring something else interesting, like the Bottle and Bond comes out at the same time.
Which was amazing.
Really, really fantastic whiskey. But you shouldn't sit on this one for too long because it's pretty unique. So this one is one of the 2 products I know out of Bulleit that has 0% rye. This is 65 corn, 30 of the mesquite smoked malt, and 5% malted barley. 6 years, 93 proof.
And it's soft.
Yeah.
It's so soft.
And I think a lot of Bulleit is, while that rye is really present, so it's funny, on the nose, obviously you're going to get smoke, but I can smell Bulleit on the nose of this. If you know Bulleit well enough, there's kind of like a fruitiness. That's like, it's almost like a strawberry fruit. And that's something I picked up almost immediately.
Yeah, but there's like a toasted nut to it as well.
Yeah. And that's got to be coming from the mesquite.
Yeah, like a stone nut. This is delicious, man.
Mm-hmm. This is fascinating whiskey to me.
This is really good.
Do you like this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm trying to dissect it though because this is a mesquite smoked is very different from traditional Islay smoked or like PPM and stuff like that. So I'm trying to take it and digest what I'm tasting because part of me gets like this absolutely fried to crisp marshmallow paired with like I associate a lot with experiences that I have, and I just, for some reason, this brings me back to making a hobo pie when I was camping, and you get that crescent, because we used to use Pillsbury crescent rolls as instead of bread, and getting that charred, and that's what I'm tasting with this, is just like bringing it back to that experience, and it's really cool to taste.
See, I'm getting a lot of like dried fruit skins on the back end, but I'm also getting like really, really deep fig or toffee, where it's super deep in there, but that kind of rounds it out to make it more palatable. Yeah. And it's so soft up front that it's not, there's almost no burn. And it's so welcoming.
Bulleit does really well when it does slightly higher proof. So mainline Bulleit is 90. The 10 years are 91.2. I don't know why they went with 1.2, but someone a lot smarter than me, when they went through and they tasted at that proof, it was perfect. Now this is 93. So this is stepping up a little bit versus our single barrels, which are all 104. And I mean, I've tried a number of Bulleit single barrels, and every time everyone I've ever tried them on is impressed. They don't feel like 104. But this whiskey is so unique, and it's very unique for the American palate because it's taking rye out entirely, it's taking wheat out entirely, and your secondary grain's all malt, which is pretty unique and singular in what Bulleit's doing, because they also brought out their American single malt to the mass market about 2 years ago, and that changes things up. And
I also love how this is very similar to Crown from a stigma standpoint, similar to like a Tullamore Dew. Like it's a bar option at an event, like a wedding or whatever, and it's like, we got Bulleit, and it's like, oh, okay, great, but like, what about Woodford? Or what if we bring in a local distillery, and it's like, well, that's extra. Like this, or Jim Beam, like this is what we have. However, when you really dive into the brand, like Bulleit and Crown, there's way more that's being offered that most people don't even know exist. I don't think a lot of people realize that Bulleit has a bib. Like having a bottle and bond is wild, and it's good. It's really good. Like it's a really good whiskey. Like, and a lot of people have never even known that exists. And I'm like, dude. And now this drops, and you're like, what is Bulleit doing? Like, is Bulleit a different thing than what I thought it was initially? Because I thought it was just kind of like a run-of-the-mill whatever, because they had just a straight bourbon and then a rye. And you're like, okay, whatever. And then now they come out with this, and you're like, hold on, that's a malt? Yeah. Like, that's way different than what I thought.
Yeah, and I think as somebody who works with this incredible portfolio, I mean, I had to sit back and go from, I went from small regional distillery with a small national pull to the largest spirits purveyor in the world and the largest spirits distributor in the country and really North America. Yeah. So was kind of a culture shock change for me, but I sat back and a little bit, yeah.
A little bit. I mean, your selling point first was the water used in the lake to make the whiskey. To now, I have Johnny. Sit when you pee. Like it's Jesus, dude. It's so wild.
Yeah. But I think that was what was. I tell this a lot when I do classes. Is like, that was my worry coming over. It's like, okay, well, where's going to be the heart that I'm going to like tell people? Where's that coming from? But you start going back. It's the history. It's
Love
not that Johnnie Walker was not some major brand when it started. It just got big. Yep. It just got really successful because they made all the right choices. Yep. Bulleit, very similarly. Honestly, they could have folded very easily, but they kept fighting, and they got the right opportunity, and they had the right whiskey and the right people behind it to make it what it is today. So I think if you sit back and you think about that, it's not like Bulleit was handed, here's $100 million, go build a distillery in 1987. Far from that. Literally somebody saying, I'm going to take all the money I have and get as many loans as I can and realize I still don't have enough money, but I'm going to make it work.
So do you know how the actual mesquite smoking process was, or how it works and how it differs from traditional peat from Scotland?
So I think it's very similar. Again, there's not, from the research on this I've done, they don't exactly tell that, but my read on it is that this is literally the same as the peating process, where they're taking their malt, they're laying it out, they're getting it wet, they're starting to do the sprouting process, and then when it's ready, they're going to dry it using the mesquite smoke. So it is very much the same thing where it's infusing that mesquite smoke and so powerfully that it's going to stay in the whiskey through milling, mashing, fermentation, distillation, bottling, and aging. So all of those are not going to take it away, but they will soften. I would be very interested to try the new make on this and see how powerful that was versus 6 years in barrel in Kentucky.
Yeah, that's the fascinating part. And I think the other fascinating part is you don't get a lot of smoked whiskey that has a corn component.
Yeah.
So when I talk about the sweetness of that crescent roll toasted or that marshmallow, I think most of it is coming from the fact that I haven't had a smoked malt with corn in it, because all of my stuff is malted barley. So I'm bringing in that sweetness to associate it with like some confectionery note because of the sweetness from the corn.
Can you settle down on the big words?
Hey, you can document it all in neat notes, man. but yeah, it's
big
very
words are important. That's half my life.
100%. Yeah, but he's we went to the same college. Okay, relax.
Barely. I wouldn't call that a college, but so the mesquite process is similar to the malting process.
That's my read on it.
That's pretty cool.
So,
okay.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
And that's Kentucky. I mean,
it's different.
That's a Kentucky thing to do, is do that same process, but let's mesquite it. That's so cool.
No comment. No, but I just like seeing the Bulleit's doing, and there's some other things I won't mention right now just because we'll wait till they officially launch, but they're coming out with more innovations.
That's cool.
So I think part of it was, when they opened up their own facility in 2017, if you guys haven't been down there, it's incredible. I mean, when I went down and visited, we got to go from Stitzelweller to Bulleit first and then Stitzelweller.
Yeah.
So you go from completely new age, 500,000 barrels on site, stack house, warehouse style, incredible. Versus you go to old school, where literally a little guy named Pappy Van Winkle was starting his own career in the whiskey industry. And
really small.
Yeah, I don't know, whoever he ended up being something, I think. But then, we have the brands like Blade & Bow and beyond now that we get to work with as well out of there.
That's sweet. We recently got...
I forgot they were your portfolio.
We recently got our executive bourbon steward from Stave & Thief.
Oh, nice.
And we were trying to figure out how to get down to Kentucky and do it in person.
Yeah.
We weren't able logistically to do it because we wanted to do the whole distillery tour. Like, we're not anti-Kentucky at all, but we're definitely like explore outside of Kentucky because there's a lot of good juice outside of Kentucky. But part of it is like, we're whiskey guys, we should probably make the trek to Kentucky. So we were trying to make that work. It didn't work. We ended up doing it online, whatever. But we do eventually want to go down to Kentucky and actually explore these distilleries, because there's a lot to it that you and I are so naive to because we're in Buffalo.
You do need to do it.
Yeah.
No, we'll for sure do it. But at the same time, we have distilled. We've distilled here. We've distilled in Ireland.
Right.
Not to sound pretentious, but like we've gone through the process in different grains, different environments, different countries, and we've learned a lot from that. And I really feel like that's part of the value as well, is the hands-on. You're diving into it, and you're really, you're seed to feed.
Okay.
Like I love that whole mindset when it comes to whiskey, which does actually bring us to Lagavulin, because they're very old school. They're obsessed with the process. And Lagavulin is something to relish. So thank you for bringing this, for one.
I'm so giddy when it comes to Lagavulin, dude. It's so good.
You've ruined me because now what happens is I sit here and just smile, and we both have Lagavulin 16 at home. I'm sure you have a bottle as well.
At least one.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where pick a brand. There's 5 brands if you could work for direct and solo. Who would you work for? Lagavulin's in at least our top 5.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, like they're one of those. So you brought the 16, so thank you, because that's an absolute treat. Yeah,
I
think
it's illegal for me in my life to not bring 16 if I
that's
can.
fair. That's fair.
true.
And thank you for not bringing Johnny Blue, because there are other elements of Johnny that need to be explored, discussed, and hammered. And thank you for that, because every CFP bro in finance ever has gifted Johnny Blue at some point. But with Lagavulin, you brought the 16 and the 11. The 11 is new.
New. This is a new release of the 11. I know we've done other 11 years. I think specifically with the Offerman, we've had a couple releases at that 11-year mark. But this is different. So Lagavulin 16, Lagavulin 11. Obviously, when we're talking about that, minimum age is going to be 11 years, but pretty unique. This is very similar to what we're talking about some of these other ones where it's all first fill bourbon cask. So ex-bourbon, first time being used, post being in bourbon barrel. That's going to bring in almost like more malty, more oaky characters than you pick up here, which is really fun. I see you're getting giddy over there. That's exciting.
Let's go.
Where 16 is going to be a mix of European oak, American cask, so you'll start to bring in that sherry influence. So when you talk about like the maturity, like I always get like that kind of dried oak, that really round richness with 16. This is different. This is definitely a little, that sweetness, the sweet peat we're talking about, it's going to balance out the smoke. So this is, again, welcoming people into the Lagavulin experience that 16 is, it's a big whiskey. 8 is super fresh. If you talked about like Wee Beastie, I consider 8 similar in some ways to that, where it's the freshness of the peat, because that has not been knocked out by the barrel yet. So something that I've read about that is that you get to taste the character of the distillery more the less time in barrel. So,
cheers, boys.
Cheers, guys.
This is awesome. It's crazy because regardless of the age statement, Lagavulin has its own taste.
But you get that kind of not medicinal sweet taste in the middle, but that's like that really sweet. I almost want to say like cardamom. It's got like a really unique spice sweetness in the middle that's different from if you go to 16 after that immediately, you're gonna say like, wow, it's so much bigger.
How is that so thin and like balanced at 11 years?
I mean, I think part of it is the difference here, because again, the weight, I mean, not only that, just color from bringing the European cask, the sherry cask, like that's going to add weight. That's going to add different characters. It's going to add leather. It's going to add dark fruits. It's all those things that I really enjoy about 16.
Hell yeah.
16 is not as smoky as 8.
No.
Correct.
And it's different kind of smoke, I should say. This is a little more like the maritime. This is much more like that salty, that peatiness, where it's like the fresh green peatiness you pick up there. This doesn't have its own thing, completely its own beast to play with.
See, the 11 is, I agree, lighter. And the 16 is heavier. But the 11 is, dude, that's wild.
Yeah.
It's thin but balanced, not overpowering. The distinct Lagavulin taste is immediate. And the ending note is clean. There's no nonsense to it. It's very clean all the way through.
There's a part of me that almost thinks the flavors are bigger in a way, where this is rounder, richer, more robust. The flavors themselves have more of a pop.
I feel like 11 is more filtered in a weird way, which it's not. No. But like, you know what I mean? Where it's so clean throughout, you're like, oh, that's got to be.
Yeah, but even just the color difference. I mean, it's a massive difference. 5 years, no sherry influence potentially coming from some of the European casks, where, I mean, 16 is going to have a lot more darkness, richness. It's almost getting into bourbon colors. Not quite as much, but it's getting there.
Are you okay?
Yeah. Well, I was.
He's taking it in.
I'm already halfway done with this bottle at home. So I've had 11. I have 16, both at home. Both are almost empty. I've drank these. I'm Lagavulin through and through. Bro.
If you need another one, I'm sure they can help you.
You've got the 11 already?
I'm halfway done with the 11 already.
When did you buy the 11?
A month ago.
We got to review it.
As soon you haven't come over, bro. As soon as that thing came out,
Waiting
I
for
bought
the invite.
it because I am such a Lagavulin fanboy.
Yeah.
I think this brand is so well rounded.
Yeah.
Because they do like the 8. I was I actually released a video on Neat Notes. Download it. But I released a video on Neat Notes saying I didn't expect Lagavulin 8 to taste this thin because I've been drinking a lot of sherry finished whiskey. And Lagavulin 8 to me feels like, I don't want to say 16's younger brother because 16 is, I feel like 16 is the mature adult in every room that's just like, this is what you want.
Yeah.
And every other Scotch whiskey that's from Islay is trying to like look up to 16 as a mentor. 11 is very sweet to me. I'm getting a lot of the vanilla and the caramel from the bourbon influence. And I think that's what I'm associating this mid-palate, not fatigue because that's a bad word, but this mid-palate almost dip in peat and spice because of that bourbon note coming through.
Yeah.
And I think that is so well done for Lagavulin to do that because it's not just a peat-focused whiskey. Like, this is Sweet Peat for a reason, obviously. That's how they named it. But it is so well-rounded, but that sweetness coming from that barrel is just such a good point.
And I think what I like, and I would almost challenge bourbon drinkers to reopen their minds a little bit to the world of malt. Because if you're seeking age, it's a lot easier to find in malt. If you're seeking robust profiles, well, good news. There's a lot of regionality and robustness across all of Scotland.
Are you saying malted barley and unmalted barley when you say explore malt?
It could be, but that would go more to Ireland if we're going to talk unmalted, which for Diageo, we mostly were Roe & Co. That's our main, but I don't think we do any unmalted in there. It's been a while since I've had that one. But I will say, try Ireland. Try international whiskeys across the board.
So you're saying
just try something other
malt.
than corn.
Yeah. So
like, I think that's the thing.
You're saying straight up malt.
Malt. I mean, when I think malt, I'm usually talking single malt traditionally or blend. Because honestly, I've always been a huge blending fan coming from craft. Because even when people think, well, I don't like blends, I'm like, well, that's impossible because everything you drink is probably blended unless it's a single barrel. Blending is the real. I know. Don't tell anybody. Might hurt someone's feelings. Check the comment section. But I've always had such a respect. Blackburn, our master distiller, truly, he's like, well, I want to be a master blender more than a master distiller. And that's when we did our custom blending program. And like you talked about before, you start to understand the smallest tweak, 0.5%, 1%. All of a sudden, the profile changes wildly. And finding how do you hone that in so you can scale up to make something great. And single malt has been doing that because, yes, they're making a single distillery 100% malt, but they're blending these barrels. And they're doing it, I think Oben's another one I talk about a lot. There's like 7 people that work at Oben, and they're supporting a global market producing whiskey.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And they are doing it unbelievably well.
And Oban 14 is everywhere.
Yes. And it's citrusy and
so
salty.
good.
And it's very lightly peated, but it's a great... I like to entry people into the west coast of Scotland with that whiskey.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Talisker. Salty, briny, maritime. Literally, like, they tell you to put it with an oyster because it matches the character of the sea so well. Like, there's just great stories across. Like, if you want stories, if you want profile, and you want age, and you want character, like, guys, you've been missing an entire category by just sticking in the world of bourbon. Bourbon's phenomenal. I'm a huge bourbon drinker. I love it. I just want to see bourbon drinkers open up again and say, there's something in the world of malt and single malt that just don't get stuck on the fact that you don't think you like it.
Yeah. Does Diageo have any American single malt brands at all? Or,
so Bulleit is one of the big ones,
Got
and
it.
then Balcones out of Texas.
Got it.
So the Texas one, that is one of my favorite American whiskeys, period.
What's their angel share? That's got to be insane. A single malt in
wild.
That's got to be like 90%.
Well, honestly,
gone within 3 months.
They do a bottle and bond rye that looks like coffee. It's so dark.
Yeah,
I think literally they punch holes in shipping containers and put their barrels in them. So they are frying them in a way in the Texas heat.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So that's what I think, like you're talking about, doesn't have to just be Kentucky. Bulleit's a phenomenal whiskey brand, and I have 90 different reasons we should talk about Bulleit. Doesn't mean I don't have reasons we should talk about Balcones. We should be talking about George Dickel, which we can get into Tennessee and go down that road as well.
That's fair.
And beyond.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So I am definitely not I drink this. I'm like, I drink this when I feel like this, and then I drink that for different reasons.
I think we need to do an episode with you again that focuses on whiskey outside of Kentucky, outside of Scotland and Ireland too, because that's one thing that Mike and I always talk about is exploring outside of Kentucky. Kentucky has its own vein, 100% understand it, and they have a very distinct taste. But Balcones, about these, even Dickel, like even Tennessee, I'm not 100% sure what the Diageo portfolio is, but there's good whiskey in Washington, there's good whiskey in California, there's good whiskey in New York, there's good whiskey everywhere that people just aren't exploring. And I think maybe doing another interview with you of Diageo brands that exist outside of Kentucky in the United States would be very fascinating, because there's some good juice out there that people aren't drinking.
Yeah, we have a couple of brands. I mean, if nothing else, we can talk a few SKUs with those brands.
Sure.
And it is fascinating, the differences in the character and the quality there.
All about it. And we're huge on barometric pressure. We're huge on temperature.
Yep.
Angel share, all of it. Devil's cut, you name it.
But we haven't even talked tequila yet, guys, so don't
I
worry.
know.
There's a lot of
Right.
directions we can
and
go.
that's my vein. So with I didn't know Lagavulin was in your portfolio.
And I'm thrilled it is. Yeah, I think it was 1916. It got picked up by the Distillers Company Limited or Johnnie. I'm blanking on which team ended up getting
Distillers
that
Company
brand.
it was,
Yeah,
yeah.
so DCL in 1916. Because originally it was, I think it's John Johnston was a gentleman who took it over from another guy who actually started Lagavulin. John Johnston started a different distillery on the same plot, because there were like 10 illicit distilleries from like the 1740s until like the early 1820s on that plot. Until in 1816, they created the Lagavulin distillery, and we go from there.
Man.
It's phenomenal.
I have to ask this just because we're talking about Lagavulin, not to sound pretentious or anything, but I was in Scotland and I was at Lagavulin, and I did meet Ian, the former dude. That guy is such an absolute legend in Lagavulin. Like he was so nice too when I was there. He was like, "Hey, you want to try to check out this 32-year-old barrel? I'll take some
No,
out
I
of
don't
it."
want
And it was
that.
just like, "Absolutely not, dude. No, of course not." He was just such a genuine person, and I'm wondering, do you know who the new distiller or blender is at Lagavulin?
Not on the top of my head.
No, okay.
But I will say, I think you find that across a lot of Scotland. Again, just like listening to Dr. Emma Walker. And like that's my most recent experience speaking with someone from Scotland, or talking with, we have a gentleman on our team named Spike McClure, and he's actually been to like every Diageo distillery. He used to be one of the big ambassadors for the U.S. And you get these incredible experiences. I mean, I'm the guy who my wife goes to bed at like 10 o'clock on a Friday. I'm going to turn on like Scotch or Golden Dram. Because I want to like pour a couple glasses of Lagavulin and just like listen to a bunch of Scottish guys tell me how to make whiskey.
Yeah.
And just how the industry gets built out, and how Scotch survive downturns, and how we get to where we are today, where as a kid from Ohio moving to New York and living in Buffalo, like I want to shout these brands to the rafters, because you're missing so
100%.
much story in history and incredible profiles. Like
No doubt.
And my brother-in-law in Virginia and I'm like, at least I can text you and you guys now about Scotch, because that's what we're doing all the time. What are you drinking tonight?
100%.
Yeah.
Does Diageo own Port Ellen too?
I want to say yes.
Because that's the whole malting company that handles most of the malting of peat malting of all the barley in the area. So like that's a
Port
that's a
Ellen's in our
massive
portfolio as well.
And there's just started a new distillery, I think, too.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
'Cause, well, I'm hoping, I want like Lagavulin, like that's like one of my like I need to go there.
So
And
cool.
I've looked at it many times of how many planes, trains, automobiles, and anything else just to get to that little island. But like I'm like, there's a chance I might get there this summer, and I'm working really hard to do so.
Text me. I got recommendations for you because I was there.
Okay.
Seriously, I got you a bed and breakfast. I got you everything to do while you're there.
I appreciate
I'll
the
hook
help,
you
and I
up.
hate that you've been there. But
Yeah,
continue.
100%.
There's a lot of connections that BHH has for Scotland. So whatever you
cool.
need.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Yeah, no doubt. And then
Honestly,
when Neat Notes explodes, we'll all go.
Yeah.
Hell
So
yeah, sounds
you
good.
can foot the bill. I appreciate it, guys.
Yes.
download neat notes. Alex, honestly, I genuinely appreciate you coming here and talking to us about this whiskey. This is not only did we talk about some almost criminally underrated whiskey like Crown and Bulleit, but like telling the story of how these brands evolved, like Lagavulin and Johnnie Walker too. It's just really cool. So thank you so much for coming in and sharing some of this stuff, because it's so good.
Yeah, no, I appreciate being able to do this, guys. I mean, the Buffalo market, and I'd love that I get to come out and talk these stories not only with you guys, but consumers across the market. There's a lot more to learn here, and I mean, I'm trying to learn it every day. It's awesome.
So we will do tequila and then back to Lagavulin at the end
Yeah, that's
for
fine.
round 2.
Lagavulin, we'll just always pour a Lagavulin at the
Yes,
end.
yeah,
Okay,
of
understood.
course.
We
Yes.
can make that happen.
Yeah.
This is a comparison of Lagavulin 16 to tequila. Perfect.
So hold on, now I still have a bottle of Don Julio Repo Finish in Lagavulin casks hiding, so I might bring that in for you.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
I'll
Thank
hold
you.
you to that.
But yeah, there is in all seriousness, there's a massive market for tequila.
Yes.
So we have to do that justice.
We will definitely do that.
Yeah, that's from a business standpoint, your job standpoint, our job standpoint. It's just something we have to discuss.
And we have
Tequila's
some
booming.
great ones to talk about, so I'd
Yeah.
love to bring them in for sure.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Alex.
man.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.